What an absolutely crazy day for the news. Not just what's happening with Canadian politics, but more specifically what's happening on the other side of the world. You see, Israel has launched a series of attacks in Lebanon, a bunch of missiles to hit different bunkers strategically placed to flush out Hezbollah leaders. And they had successfully done that over the weekend. They killed the number one in command, the number two in command, and a bunch of other head figures. And now in a response, Iran has stepped in and said, okay, bet we're gonna attack you back. And that's what they did not too long ago today, a few hours ago. And I'm sure you've already seen the footage, but we're going to be taking a look at the footage, but more importantly, Canada's role in this. We are a Canadian channel, and I mean, Canada is heavily involved with, humanitarian aid and peacekeeping missions, but we've also deployed a series of troops to Lebanon to help with maybe securing the borders there. And now it just seems like, hey, I don't think that our troops should be there, but our Justin Trudeau's mistress, our representative who makes these types of decisions and announcements, Mélanie Joly, she's going to be talking about this, but we're going to take a look at, in case you missed the footage, the bombings, what Canada's role is and where we go from here. But one thing is for certain, it's not good. This is, a lot of people were speculating Russia and Ukraine would be the nuclear event or lead to the nuclear event. It seems like this might be it, because what we saw today has absolutely shocked the world. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you guys to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. We are very, very close to 410,000 subscribers, and we can't get there without your help. And without further ado, let's get into this. So let's take a look at Canada's role. The Canadian Armed Forces is changing its posture to the crisis in Lebanon and increasing troops in the region to give the government more flexibility, including the ability to move quickly if an evacuation of Canadian citizens is ordered, says Global News. That was 5 days ago. Now let's take a look at a short clip of what the press conference was from Mélanie Joly today, because this happened right as all of the politicians were heading into Parliament.
We're hearing from our Foreign Affairs Minister, Mélanie Joly, in Ottawa. If you can stand by, let's listen into what she's saying.
And also with many foreign ministers from the G7 and Arab countries. This is a very dangerous time for the Middle East. And of course, our hearts and thoughts are with the people of the region. We're following everything very, very closely. I'll be later today in contact with the heads of mission that we have in the region. And of course, when it comes to consular services in Israel, we stand ready to help. Now let me talk to you about Lebanon and the evacuation. We have been able to get 200 Canadians out over the weekend. We also have another flight with 200 Canadians leaving Beirut today to go to Istanbul. 600 seats have been reserved, and we're also looking at more. And flights are all between Beirut and Istanbul. My point to all of us watching, if you are offered a seat, please take it. And it is time to leave Lebanon now. And please don't go to Lebanon. The reality is the seats that we have been securing have not all been taken. And so that's why I want to make sure that people listening to us or watching us know this very well, because we have 4,000 people that have asked information about departure. We've called, as of this morning, 1,700 of them. Only 50% have taken the offer. And I know it's a tough choice. I know that the situation is extremely difficult, but my priority is your security. And that's why if you're offered a seat, please take it.
Right. So that's part of the press conference that was given by Trudeau's mistress, Mélanie Joly. We're going to take a look later on at the additional pieces of that press conference, what she said. But let's take a look now for those that missed it. So earlier this morning here in our time, late at night for the folks involved in this war, there was a massive air raid alert across Israel. Iran launched ballistic missiles, says the Israeli minister. Now, there was speculation that these were all military targets, but as we've realized, since the 200 plus ballistic missiles have actually hit Israel, you have apartment buildings that were hit. Now, I believe a lot of these places were previously evacuated, but nonetheless, this went after civilians. This went after cities and infrastructure, not military targets. Also to note, you had America step in and they intercepted a lot of the ballistic missiles from their ships, and then you also had surrounding countries also get it. I think it was Jordan got involved. So there's a lot of people in that area that are not agreeing with Iran to do this type of attack on Israel. And now that they've done their attack, it's Israel's turn. And that's going to happen later tonight for them. So probably over the next sometime 8 hours, we're going to see a insane retaliatory response. And America has already given the red light. Let's take a look for those that miss it. I can't actually play the videos, so you're going to have to use a little bit of your imagination. But here you've got missiles. As you can see, they are hitting down into civilian populated areas, right? It's straight out of a horror movie. Like, it just looks like a sci-fi movie. It looks like meteors crashing down to Earth. These are missiles shot by Iran. Very crazy. Like, it just lit up the sky. It almost looks like a drone show, right? That's all, hundreds of millions of dollars of missiles. And kind of the golden question here is, what happened to the Iron Dome, right? This was happening, as all these missiles started hitting Israel, you have, reports the Iron Dome wasn't doing anything. Like, it malfunctioned, it stopped working. We don't really know, but this is not this is a second occurrence now in very recent time that the Iron Dome has failed. And so there's a lot of speculation as to, the conspiracy side of things. What was this a purposeful shutdown by the IDF so that they could get attacked? So they had the go ahead, the green light by, the powers that be, America, to say, okay, now you can hit back hard because you were hit hard. We don't really know. Personally, I don't think that was the case. I don't really understand that. I mean, kind of maybe in like a UFC format, like let them hit you so that you can hit them type of thing, like bait them in. But when it comes to your buildings, your roads, your infrastructure, civilians being at risk, I don't really understand that play. But maybe you have some comments down below about that. Then you have this barrage right here. I mean, absolutely insane. It just looks like it's straight out of a movie. If you don't already follow me on X, I highly recommend you go, because I've shared all of these clips on my X account. I can't press play, unfortunately, on these videos for YouTube, or else it'll get absolutely suppressed, right? As you can see, just hell raining from the skies. And then there were some missiles that failed, right? Some landed out on roofs. They never exploded. There's video of one of these missiles just falling from the sky, like it misfired, and it killed somebody in Gaza, and it just like literally landed and exploded, landed on them, squishing them. We don't really know if it's, I don't think it's CGI, but nonetheless, it is a video circulating. So there's a lot of, potential mis and disinformation out there right now about what's happening. The infrastructure that did get hit, people in these instances like to use, some like very high definition footage of, war video games, right? Like, you see this all the time when there's massive attacks. So just be vigilant of that. Keep that in mind, and make sure you're kind of cross-referencing and doing your own fact checking. Then you have the United States says Israel will absolutely retaliate against Iran. And chances are you're going to see America do this in conjunction with Israel. It might be a coordinated dual attack. We don't really know yet, but we do know that if it does escalate to something where America does actually get involved and personally attacks Iran, then you might see Russia or China step in and say, okay, now you've gone too far. So we don't really know how this will play out, but this was insane. And the damage that's associated with this is actually unclear what that number is right now, but you can only speculate to be in the billions of dollars. Then you have BRICS News, the official X account, saying President Biden orders U.S. military to shoot down Iranian missiles fired at Israel. So there was official orders to do that. And you have Mossad commentary here on X that says, from the IDF, we will attack with force tonight throughout the Middle East. And then you've got this video that's circulating of Netanyahu, who is keeping up with his cardio. There's a lot of videos lately of him circulating videos of him going for runs and stuff like that within Israel. But this is him sprinting for his bunker. Right. That's very important when shit hits the fan. You definitely need to make sure that, the thing that you need to focus on the best is that you have really good cardio, which is why taking care of your health and, working out and going for runs, doing some form of cardio is really, really recommended. And then kind of to tie this back into Canada, right? You had Pierre Poilievre immediately respond. Immediately, once this happened, he said, horrified by Tehran's latest assault against innocent Israeli civilians with missile barrages and terrorist attacks. Millions of civilians are forced to shelter from the attacks. Conservatives support Israel's right to defend itself and defeat the terrorists. And this happened right before he was going into Parliament, into the House of Commons for question period. It's crazy because Justin Trudeau hasn't actually said anything yet. When you go to his X account at the time of this recording, which is probably minutes before it does get posted online, there's nothing. You got September 30th, you got 21 hours ago, but there's nothing from Justin Trudeau yet. And he also wasn't even in Parliament. He wasn't in the House of Commons. So we don't know where he was. No statements, right? No appearances, no press appearances. Where the hell is our Canadian leadership? The only one that's speaking on behalf of the government is his mistress, Melanie Joly, who showed up with this very extravagant and exotic outfit. Like, I don't even know how she's considered a real person. When she talks about Ukraine, she's wearing, olive drab dresses. And then when she talks about Palestine or Israel, she's wearing colorful clothes. Like, it's just so bizarre. But nonetheless, let's take a look at the remainder of her press interview that she did.
Counterpart.
We've been in contact through text.
What did he tell you, and what did you say to him? What's Canada's message to Israel at this time?
So he reiterated his own position, which is basically Israel's right to defend itself. And that has been his position since. And our position has been since that, of course, we need a ceasefire and we need this war to stop.
So how do you assess at this point then the risk to people, Canadians in particular in Lebanon, the risk of an all-out war and the risk to their own lives?
Well, right now we're seeing that there is a war. And we just saw that Iran attacked Israel. So, and there is also a war going on in Lebanon. So we are in a scenario where there is a war in the Middle East. And so that's why I just said this is a very dangerous time in the Middle East.
Is it Canada's position that Israel should not respond to Iran? I mean, you've called for a ceasefire vis-a-vis Hezbollah, but this attack from Iran, is Canada asking Israel not to respond in kind?
We need to make sure that there's no escalation. Of course, Israel needs to be able to protect itself, and that's why we'll continue to support its security, and we'll support, of course, through the Iron Dome. At the same time, we need to make sure that parties sit down and the war stops, because we can see that what will happen, there will be even more further escalation, more innocent civilians, including women and children, die. And that's what I said at the UN yesterday. We need this war to stop.
Minister, at the UN, you talked about demanding for peace in the Middle East. Do you feel a bit powerless now that it seems like situation's escalating? What control or power do you have in this situation?
I believe in diplomacy. I believe that it is possible to get to peace. I believe that we're in a moment where we need to save lives. That's my job. And my job is to reach out to also our like-minded, including, of course, the G7 foreign ministers, reaching out to Israel and making sure that there is de-escalation. And that's what I'll continue to do. That's Canada's job, and that's our voice in the world. En français?
Israël donne pas répliquer à l'Iran.
And so what if Israel responds to Iran? As I said, Israel does need to be able to defend itself. But one thing that is very important is that the war needs to stop. There is no scenario where this will turn out well.
And that's probably one of the very few things that I actually agree with Melanie Joly is there is no scenario where this will turn out well. Like, this has gotten to the point where it's beyond craziness, right? Like, we need to be talking about peace, not making all these additional global coalitions to escalate these wars for the war profiteers, the war mongers to keep making ridiculous amounts of money on this. Like, it's just, it needs to stop, man. It needs to stop.
For weeks, you've been asking for de-escalation. A de-escalation of the war, but we could say we've seen now an escalation. Do you not have any resources? What else can you do? I think the diplomacy is still working, and this is why I'm in contact with my Israeli counterpart, as well as my colleagues from the G7. We need to continue to put pressure on them.
Okay, can you stop talking together? Yes,
Is it on Israel? Now, you talk about a diplomatic solution is needed,
It's on
but is
all-
it on Israel?
Tonda, I understand your question. It's on all parties. It's absolutely on all parties. Last week, we were on the verge of a ceasefire. That didn't happen. When I went to bed on Wednesday night, I was convinced that there was a ceasefire. And so, well, parties need to accept, and they need to engage in diplomacy. But right now, there's not happening between parties. And we're many of us around the G7, many other Arab foreign ministers putting a lot of pressure. And that's why we need a ceasefire to happen. Because at the end of the day, we need to have time to have these conversations. That's why last week we were trying to negotiate a ceasefire of 21 days in order to have peace talks and in order to save lives. And so at this point, that's why I'm calling for a ceasefire, because we need to make sure that ultimately these conversations happen and we save lives. Dernière question.
Quels sont les outils qui nous restent? Ça fait un an
What tools are left to us?
que le conflit dégénère.
It's been 1 year
Le conflit
since the
dégénère.
threat of
Qu'est-ce qui nous reste comme
conflict
outil
has been there, that it would
convaincre
deteriorate.
nos alliés
So what do we have
et
left to
les autres?
convince our allies and others that there's something left to be done?
Je comprends pas.
What are the tools? Answer? The tools are still and always have been diplomacy. The tools have always been to push our stakeholders. In Canada, we're not having a conversation with Iran. We don't have diplomatic relations with Iran. We are having conversations with other Arab countries and diplomatic conversations, and it's essential that this war ends.
Yeah, it's essential this war ends, and Canada's in this weird position where we don't really pick a side on anything. We don't stand up for anything, which means that we're going to fall for everything. Canada sent a tremendous amount of money, millions of dollars of money to help with humanitarian responses to Gaza. You even have the state, the official Palestinian state X account, right? The government's got that gray check mark. They are posting videos of Melanie Joly's latest UN speeches where, and I talked about this in my earlier video this morning, where they are thankful that she's providing with Canadian resources a bunch of humanitarian aid to Palestine and to Gaza. And now we're sending people to Lebanon. We support Israel. If I get this straight, we support Israel's right to defend themselves, to bomb Lebanon, but then we are going into Lebanon to help the people of our friends that have just been bombed. Like, I don't really get that strategy, but that's That's Canada. And now we're about to see an escalation to something that we haven't really seen in a very long time if Israel does pull off what they are planning to do later this evening successfully, right? And Netanyahu, as I was recording this, actually just came out with a video. So let's take a look at his message to Iran and what we can expect in the coming hours. Well, as it turns out, we can't actually see the video because I don't particularly speak the language, and there are no subtitles as of yet.
בפתח דבריי, אני שולח תנחומים למשפחות נרצחי הפיגוע הנפשע ביפו.
But I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's got something to do with, hey, Iran, we're about to flatten you. And there's a lot of speculation that Iran, or that Israel is going to be going after Iran's oil and maybe nuclear projects. So you're about to see potentially some insane explosions and war tonight. And I mean, Canada has already been called up by NATO, right? NATO has made the statement that Canada needs to prepare for conventional war. So we might actually see Canada get redeployed to the Middle East, which is something that I think the majority of Canadians do not, I repeat, do not consent with. And we're going to end it on this last note here. Again, while I was recording this, there's no subtitles needed for this one. But while I was recording this, as you're going to see, this is moments ago. It's now 2:08 p.m. Pacific Standard. Justin Trudeau put this out at 2:02 p.m. So literally 6 minutes ago, Trudeau finally addresses the issue. Canada unequivocally condemns Iran's reckless attack against Israel. It puts innocent civilians at risk. We fully support Israel's right to defend itself against this attack. And we repeat our call for de-escalation across the region for the safety of all civilians. And that's just... Why did it take you so many hours? Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the opposition, beat him by 3 hours. Almost 3 full hours. That's craziness. You're the Prime Minister of Canada, and you say that we need to protect Israel. We are allies with Israel. And then you take 3 hours to respond to one of the craziest attacks Israel has experienced in a very, very long time. That is kind of weird, but I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Is Canada going to get directly involved with this war? Are we going to have troops deployed to help out Israel? Let me know your guys' theories down below. We know 2 things. Canada needs to get ready for conventional war. This has been stated by NATO. So we don't have an option in saying no to them, or else, you know, we get the boot. Not the bout, the boot. They will give us the boot and we'll be ejected out of NATO. So we know that Canada needs to prepare for conventional war. We know that there are an insane amount of wars breaking out across the world right now, and they're all from like allied countries or potentially allied countries, right? Ukraine isn't a part of NATO, but they are supposed to be, you know, brought into NATO, just not while they are technically at war with Russia. And then Israel is also an ally. So there's a couple different routes that Canada can take. Deploy troops to, it's not Poland because we already got people there, to Ukraine to fight alongside Ukraine, or to Israel to fight against, you know, Iran and Hezbollah and stuff like that. We're just going to have to wait and see how this plays out. But nonetheless, it's going to be insane tonight. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn post notifications on. And if you haven't yet already, highly recommend you guys like the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.